Do you remember those African American desserts only your grandparents knew? Sweet, simple, and full of love. Each one carried family, pride, and care in every bite. What do we lose when those recipes fade away? Tea cakes were the soul of Southern kitchens, where the smell of butter, sugar, and vanilla filled the air long before dessert was even ready. They were soft, round cookies, simple but rich in memory, born from hands that measured by feel, not by cup. Each one came from recipes passed down through mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers, written not on paper, but in the rhythm of doing. The dough was rolled gently, cut into perfect circles, and baked until the edges just kissed golden brown. A hint of nutmeg or lemon zest gave them warmth that lingered on the tongue. Children would sneak them off cooling racks, earning a playful scold and a second helping. They were made for visitors, for after-church Sundays, for holidays when love was served fresh from the oven. In times when sweets were a luxury, tea cakes stood as a promise, affordable, dependable, and made with care. They represented the art of turning little into plenty, flour and sugar into affection. Even now, one bite feels like coming home, soft and familiar, like stories told in the kitchen long after supper. Tea cakes were more than cookies. They were memory you could taste, shaped by love and baked in history. Sweet potato pie was the dessert that told a story before it was ever sliced. Smooth, spiced, and golden, it carried the essence of the harvest and the heart of the South. Made from mashed sweet potatoes, milk, butter, and warm spices, it was the crown of every Sunday dinner table. Each pie began as a labor of patience, boiling, mashing, stirring, and tasting until it felt just right. The filling was poured into hand-rolled crusts that browned and flaked with care. The smell alone filled homes with comfort, calling everyone to the table before grace was even said. It was a dessert that spoke of tradition, endurance, and pride, a reminder that sweetness could come from soil and struggle alike. Some topped it with cream, others left it plain, but everyone agreed it was home in a pie shell. Grandmothers guarded their recipes, knowing each one was as unique as the cook who made it. The first bite always silenced the room, soft, velvety, and deep with cinnamon and nutmeg. Sweet potato pie was love disguised as dessert, and every forkful carried the warmth of generations who baked meaning into every meal. Buttermilk pie was proof that thrift and flavor could walk hand in hand. Born from the simplest ingredients, buttermilk, eggs, sugar, and a little flour, it transformed scarcity into sweetness. Its custard-like filling baked to a silky texture, with a crackly top that shimmered under the oven light. In the South, buttermilk pie was the dessert you made when times were lean, but hearts stayed generous. It was poured into plain crusts, sometimes seasoned with a touch of lemon or vanilla, and served with coffee or after Sunday supper. Its tang balanced the sugar perfectly, creating something that was both humble and elegant. Every bite felt like gratitude, smooth, light, and comforting. Grandmothers often kept buttermilk ready in their kitchens, not just for biscuits, but for pie, because you never knew when company might drop by. It was a dessert that said, "Welcome," without needing to say a word. For many families, it was the first pie a child learned to bake, simple enough to follow, special enough to remember. Buttermilk pie was sweetness without excess, made not to impress, but to comfort. It reminded everyone that the best recipes come not from plenty, but from love and imagination. Coconut pineapple cake was celebration baked into layers, the kind of dessert that made any gathering feel grand. Fluffy white cake held together by creamy frosting, its sweetness lifted by the tropical burst of pineapple and coconut. It shimmered on holiday tables, a symbol of joy and togetherness. In many homes, it was the cake reserved for Easter, birthdays, or family reunions, moments that deserved a little extra sparkle. Pineapple brought brightness, coconut added texture, and the frosting sealed it all with pure indulgence. The cake stood tall and proud, dusted with flakes that caught the light like snow in sunshine. Bakers took pride in it because it was not just dessert, it was decoration, centerpiece, and memory all at once. Each slice tasted like sunshine wrapped in sugar. It brought laughter to quiet rooms and sweetness to tired hearts. Even after the plates were cleared, its scent lingered in the air, soft as the sound of family chatter. Coconut pineapple cake was more than flavor. It was a feeling, a promise that no matter how hard life got, there would always be sweetness to look forward to. Bread pudding with raisins was the taste of comfort reborn from leftovers. Made from day-old bread, milk, sugar, and eggs, it turned waste into wonder. Every kitchen had its version. Some used cinnamon, some nutmeg, others a splash of vanilla or even molasses. The mixture soaked slowly, letting the bread absorb every drop until it softened into something rich and fragrant. When baked, it puffed slightly, golden on top and tender beneath. The raisins added tiny bursts of sweetness, little jewels in a sea of custard. It was served warm, sometimes with a drizzle of caramel or cream, and always with pride. Bread pudding was never about luxury. It was about knowing how to make do and make it good. Families passed the recipe down not for its precision, but for its heart. It was a dessert of quiet evenings, of warmth shared across small tables. The smell of it baking filled homes with peace, reminding everyone that nothing truly good ever goes to waste. Bread pudding was memory and mercy baked together, a dessert that hugged you back. Peach cobbler was summer's song, bubbling under a crust of golden dough. Sweet peaches were peeled and sliced, mixed with sugar and spice, then poured into baking dishes that gleamed with butter. As it baked, the syrup thickened, caramelizing around the edges until it clung like honey. Every spoonful was sunshine you could taste. Cobbler was made for family gatherings, church picnics, and long afternoons when the house smelled like joy. Some topped it with biscuit dough, others with pastry, but all agreed it was best served warm with melting cream or ice cream. The first scoop broke through the crust like cracking open happiness itself. Peaches were plentiful in the South, and cobbler was the best way to honor their sweetness. It was a dessert that belonged to every generation, simple yet spectacular. Grandmothers taught it to daughters who passed it on again, each one adding their own touch. Peach cobbler was not just food, it was the memory of sunlight, laughter, and love baked together until golden. Molasses cookies were the quiet kind of dessert that did not need to be flashy to be remembered. Soft, chewy, and deeply spiced, they carried the taste of old Southern kitchens where time moved slow. Molasses gave them their dark sweetness, rich and almost smoky, while ginger and cinnamon added warmth that lingered. The dough was rolled into balls, sprinkled with sugar, and baked until their tops cracked just slightly. They cooled on racks, filling the air with the smell of brown sugar and spice. Children would wait by the counter, unable to resist their pull. Molasses cookies were made year-round but found special life in the winter months, when their flavor felt like a blanket against the cold. They were often packed into tins or wrapped in cloth to share with neighbors. Each bite was soft but strong, sweet but deep, like the people who made them. They were a reminder that simplicity done right can be unforgettable. Lemon pound cake was sunshine baked into a loaf. Dense, buttery, and fragrant with zest, it brightened every table it touched. The batter was rich but balanced, heavy with eggs and sugar, yet lifted by the sharp tang of lemon. Served at church events, neighbor visits, and Sunday teas, it was the kind of dessert that always felt right. Bakers knew to cream the butter slow, to fold the flour gently, to test doneness with care. It came out of the oven golden, with a crack along the top like a smile. Some poured glaze over it, others kept it plain, but the taste was always perfect, bright, rich, and clean. Lemon pound cake symbolized generosity. It was made to be shared, sliced thick for company. It was the dessert of hospitality, of knocking on a door and being greeted with warmth. Every crumb carried a bit of cheer, the kind that lingers long after the last bite. Caramel cake was patience turned sweet. Tall, tender layers were stacked and frosted with thick caramel icing, smooth as silk and sweet as devotion. The icing had to be stirred endlessly over the stove, a slow process that tested skill and heart. It thickened to just the right consistency, soft enough to spread, firm enough to hold. The finished cake gleamed golden brown, a masterpiece of effort and love. Slicing into it revealed layers of sponge soaked with caramel flavor, the kind that made you close your eyes in gratitude. It was baked for weddings, birthdays, and church anniversaries, where dessert was more than food. It was testimony. Caramel cake showed what care could create, how something as simple as sugar and butter could become sacred through work. It was the crown jewel of the table, and anyone who could make it was respected for it. Every bite was a hymn to home, to pride, and to the sweetness of perseverance. Banana pudding with vanilla wafers was comfort layered in glass dishes, cool and creamy, the perfect ending to a hot day. Sliced bananas nestled between layers of pudding and cookies, softening together into a sweet symphony. The top was often finished with whipped cream or meringue, lightly browned under the oven flame. It chilled in the refrigerator until the flavors melded, each bite blending nostalgia and joy. It was the dessert that showed up at picnics, potlucks, and holidays alike, familiar, beloved, and always gone too soon. Banana pudding was more than dessert. It was unity in a bowl, shared by every hand at the table. The vanilla wafers softened just enough to melt on the tongue, while the bananas brought brightness that made it feel fresh every time. Grandmothers made it from scratch, stirring custard slow over the stove, while younger generations reached for boxed mixes, but the love stayed the same. Every spoonful was memory and sweetness combined, as timeless as the families who passed it on. Praline candy was the taste of New Orleans captured in a single perfect bite. Made from brown sugar, butter, cream, and pecans, it was sweet, nutty, and melt-in-your-mouth good. The scent alone could pull people into a kitchen where someone stood stirring slow over a hot stove, watching for just the right moment when the sugar began to thicken and gloss. It was a candy of care and patience, where timing meant everything. Too soon and it stayed syrupy, too late and it turned to rock, but when done just right, it cooled into golden perfection. Grandmothers made them by instinct, no thermometer needed, dropping spoonfuls onto wax paper to harden. Pralines were shared at holidays, church socials, and after Sunday dinners, little tokens of sweetness and pride. They symbolized Southern hospitality at its finest, a simple treat made rich through love. Each bite carried warmth and memory, a reminder that joy can be handmade. Cornmeal pound cake was the dessert that knew its roots. It was the meeting point between everyday sustenance and celebration, combining the heartiness of cornmeal with the tenderness of cake. The batter came together thick and golden, poured into a pan that filled kitchens with the smell of comfort. It baked dense yet soft, with a texture that held just enough grit to remind you where it came from. Sweet but never cloying, it balanced butter and sugar with a rustic charm that felt both humble and special. Served plain or with a drizzle of syrup, it fit just as easily on a weeknight table as it did on a Sunday spread. It was a recipe that honored thrift, stretching what was on hand into something delightful. Families baked it for reunions, for guests, for no reason at all other than love. Cornmeal pound cake was proof that simplicity done right can taste like celebration. Blackberry dumplings were summer's sweet masterpiece, bubbling away on stovetops long before dessert was even mentioned. Fresh blackberries were cooked down with sugar until they turned into a deep purple syrup that perfumed the house. Then came the dough, soft, rolled by hand, and dropped gently into the pot. As it simmered, the syrup thickened, soaking into the dumplings until each one became tender, glossy, and filled with the taste of fruit and sun. Every spoonful felt like a memory of long afternoons spent picking berries along the fence, fingers stained and hearts light. Served warm with cream or ice cream, it was a dessert that made the simplest ingredients unforgettable. Blackberry dumplings were never about perfection. They were about joy, about using what you had to create something that tasted like pure happiness. One bite, and you could almost hear the laughter of the people who made it first. 7. Upcake was the sparkle of the 1970s kitchen, sweet, bright, and joyfully inventive. Lemon lime soda found its way into bundt pans, making the batter rise light and moist. It was the cake that turned every potluck into a party, gleaming under a drizzle of sugar glaze. Housewives, grandmothers, and church cooks swore by its secret ingredient, pouring it in with a wink. The soda added a citrus tang that made each slice sing with freshness. It was baked for birthdays, holidays, and simple Sunday afternoons, proof that creativity had its rewards. You did not need fancy ingredients, just a little imagination and a bottle from the fridge. 7-Up cake was modern comfort with old-fashioned roots, the kind of dessert that made everyone ask for seconds. Its soft crumb and sweet glaze became the taste of home gatherings across the South. One forkful, and you could feel the decade itself, bright, hopeful, and full of flavor. Chocolate chess pie was elegance baked into simplicity. Cocoa, sugar, eggs, and butter came together to form a filling so rich it needed nothing else. It baked into a glossy top with a fudgy center, soft but firm enough to slice clean. The smell of chocolate filled the house, wrapping around you like a warm embrace. It was the dessert that made any meal feel complete, from weeknight suppers to church celebrations. Each bite carried the deep, old-fashioned sweetness that only comes from patience and memory. Some added a dusting of sugar, others a dollop of cream, but most preferred it plain, just pure, unbothered flavor. Chocolate chess pie was for those who appreciated richness without excess. It reminded everyone that the best things do not have to be complicated. It was a Southern favorite that never needed introduction, loved quietly but fiercely across generations. Apple brown. Betty was a dessert born from ingenuity, proof that waste had no place in the kitchen. Stale bread was turned into something golden and comforting, layered with sliced apples, brown sugar, and butter. It baked until the top crisped and the apples softened into a sweet, spiced filling. The smell alone felt like a hug. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and sugar mixed with the tartness of apples to create a balance that was as warm as it was nostalgic. Every home had its own version, handed down and tweaked by feel. Served with cream or a scoop of ice cream, it became something truly special. Apple Brown Betty was dessert made from what was left, transformed through love and care into something worth remembering. It spoke of thrift, of creativity, of turning the simplest ingredients into comfort. In its quiet way, it told the story of how nothing good should ever go to waste. Pecan pie was tradition baked into a crust. Sticky, sweet, and impossibly rich, it brought families together every holiday season. The filling shimmered with brown sugar and syrup, thickened with eggs and butter until it set into gooey perfection. Pecans floated on top, toasted and fragrant, creating a crackly layer that gave way to sweetness underneath. Every bite carried the flavor of care, the slow stirring, the watchful baking, the anticipation as it cooled. It was the crown jewel of Southern tables, a dessert that symbolized generosity and pride. Whether served at Thanksgiving or Sunday supper, it tasted like celebration. The first slice was always for the guest of honor, but there was always enough for everyone. Pecan pie reminded people of family, of hands that worked hard and hearts that shared freely. It was richness born of simplicity, made not for show, but for love. Rice pudding with nutmeg was the dessert that turned leftovers into comfort. Made from cooked rice, milk, sugar, and eggs, it transformed plain grains into something silky and satisfying. Nutmeg gave it warmth, a fragrance that filled the kitchen as it baked. Sometimes raisins were added, sometimes a splash of vanilla, but it never lost its humble charm. Rice pudding was the taste of home, of frugality turned into grace. It was served warm in winter, cool in summer, always at the end of a meal when hearts were full. Each spoonful felt like calm after the day's noise, a reminder that sweetness could be simple. It was not a fancy dessert, but it did not need to be. It was made from love, not luxury. The nutmeg dusting on top was like a quiet signature, subtle yet unforgettable. Rice pudding was comfort reborn from the ordinary, proof that good cooks never wasted a thing. Vinegar pie was the triumph of ingenuity during hard times. Born in the Depression era, it turned pantry basics into something unexpectedly sweet. Vinegar, sugar, butter, and eggs came together to create a custard-like filling with a tang that cut through the richness. It baked in simple crusts, often made by hand when rolling pins were scarce and measuring cups optional. The smell was sharp yet inviting, a promise that even scarcity could yield sweetness. Families made it when there was no fruit, no cream, no luxury, just determination and a will to create. The result was a pie that surprised everyone, balancing tartness and sweetness in every bite. Vinegar pie reminded generations that creativity was as essential as ingredients. It stood for perseverance, turning lack into something lovely. Long after times improved, people still baked it, not from need but from respect for the resilience it represented. Homemade ice cream, hand-churned and full of love, was the taste of summer afternoons. Families gathered around the old metal churn, packed with ice and salt, taking turns to crank the handle as laughter filled the air. The reward was always worth the effort, creamy, cold, and rich with vanilla or fresh fruit like peaches or strawberries. It was dessert and togetherness rolled into one, made slower but sweeter by the work it took. No store-bought treat could ever match the flavor of that patience. Children waited eagerly for their scoop, eyes wide as the lid lifted to reveal soft, frozen clouds. The first taste was pure bliss, cooling the heat of the day and bringing smiles all around. Homemade ice cream was not just about dessert. It was about community, tradition, and the joy of making something special together. The rhythm of the churn, the anticipation in the air, even the chill that numbed fingertips, it all became part of the experience. On porches and in backyards, families shared stories while the mixture froze into magic. Some added rock salt by hand, others guarded secret flavor blends. Whether peach, vanilla, or chocolate, every batch tasted like family. It was childhood, love, and summer captured in a spoon. Chess squares were the kind of dessert that could fill a church hall with joy before anyone even took a bite. Made from a base of yellow cake mix, butter, eggs, and a sweet cream cheese layer, they baked into gooey golden perfection. When cooled, they were cut into neat squares and dusted with sugar, ready for bake sales, homecomings, and Sunday coffee hours. They were rich but never pretentious, indulgent yet familiar. Each square had a crisp edge that gave way to a buttery, soft center that melted on the tongue. You could taste the love and care that went into every batch. It was the kind of dessert you made for others, something to bring, to give, to share. They were best eaten with fingers sticky and laughter close by. Simple ingredients, perfect balance, no wasted effort. Chess squares were comfort dressed as sweetness, humble enough for the everyday but special enough for celebration. They were the first to disappear from dessert tables, wrapped in napkins to take home or traded for recipes scribbled on index cards. The smell of sugar and butter lingered long after the pans were empty, a reminder of fellowship and generosity. Each bite carried a warmth that no fancy confection could imitate. Fig preserves on biscuits were proof that patience had its own kind of sweetness. Sticky, golden, and fragrant. They were made every summer when fig trees bowed heavy with fruit. Families gathered to wash, slice, and simmer the figs slowly with sugar and lemon until they thickened into glossy perfection. The jars lined pantry shelves like treasures, each one holding a piece of sunlight saved for colder days. On cool mornings, those preserves met warm biscuits pulled fresh from the oven, the butter melting beneath their syrupy sweetness. Every bite felt like home, like mornings spent barefoot on back steps, listening to the hum of life around you. Figs had a depth no other fruit could match, earthy, honeyed, full of memory. They were the taste of care, the reward of time well spent. Fig preserves on biscuits were love in edible form, preserved for the ones you loved most. The ritual of canning was just as sweet as the fruit itself, watching jars seal, hearing the pop of lids as they cooled. It was a ceremony of preservation, of keeping warmth alive through the seasons. Each spread on a biscuit tasted like devotion, a quiet joy crafted by patient hands. Pineapple upside-down cake was the crown jewel of mid-century baking, the dessert that made every table feel brighter. Its golden rings of pineapple and red cherries shimmered under a glossy brown sugar glaze, baked at the bottom of the pan and flipped to reveal their perfection. It was both spectacle and comfort, a tropical dream come true in the heart of America. The cake beneath was soft, buttery, and just sweet enough to hold its own. In the 1960s and 1970s, it became a symbol of creativity, a dessert that looked fancy but came straight from the heart. Families served it warm, the syrup soaking into each bite. You could find it at potlucks, birthdays, and Sunday dinners alike, always met with delighted smiles. It was the dessert that turned an ordinary evening into a celebration. Pineapple upside-down cake was sunshine you could slice, simple and unforgettable. The caramel glaze shimmered in the light, the smell of sugar and fruit filling every corner of the home. Children watched wide-eyed as it flipped out of the pan, a perfect masterpiece born of patience and flair. Each slice carried sweetness and pride, a little reminder that beauty could come from the simplest kitchen. Sweet potato pudding was dessert elevated through memory and tradition. Similar to pie but richer, it was made from mashed sweet potatoes mixed with butter, sugar, and milk, spiced with cinnamon, nutmeg, and sometimes a hint of lemon. It baked until the edges caramelized and the center stayed soft and custard-like. The smell alone could fill a home with warmth and nostalgia. Grandmothers served it at holidays, scooped from glass casseroles and topped with whipped cream or nothing at all. It never needed help to shine. Every spoonful felt like history, sweet and earthy with a depth that no other dessert could match. It was a dish that celebrated resourcefulness and flavor, turning the simplest crop into something magnificent. Sweet potato pudding spoke of heritage and resilience, the kind of dessert that carried stories from generation to generation. Each bite tasted like memory and belonging, soft yet steady like the hands that made it. The spices lingered, the sweetness hummed low and slow, reminding everyone that comfort was born of care. It was more than a dish, it was a legacy baked in glass. Old-fashioned custard cups were the dessert of gentleness and grace. Made from eggs, milk, sugar, and a touch of vanilla, they baked in water baths until barely set, trembling slightly when cooled. The surface formed a delicate golden skin that gave way to creamy sweetness beneath. Each cup was served with a spoon and quiet satisfaction. Custard was a dessert of patience, the kind that required still hands and a steady oven. It was often made for guests or children, loved for its simplicity and comfort. Some added a sprinkle of nutmeg on top, others left it plain, but all agreed it was the taste of care. Served cold or warm, it soothed both body and soul. It was the kind of dessert that fit every moment, a small comfort on ordinary nights and a touch of grace at Sunday suppers. Families trusted it for its consistency, its calm. Each spoonful felt timeless, smooth as memory, soft as affection. Old-fashioned custard cups were proof that softness could hold strength, that the simplest things often linger the longest. Oatmeal lace cookies were delicate wonders, thin as paper and crisp as caramel. Butter, sugar, oats, and a touch of flour were all it took to make them shimmer like spun gold in the oven. They spread as they baked, forming lacy edges that crumbled at the slightest touch. You could smell the toasted oats and sugar long before they finished. These cookies were often tucked into tins or wrapped for neighbors, small gestures that carried big warmth. Despite their fragile look, they packed deep flavors, sweet, buttery, and nutty all at once. Making them required precision and patience, but the result was worth every moment. Children loved their crunch, adults admired their beauty, and everyone reached for seconds. They looked elegant without trying to be, the kind of cookie that spoke softly but stayed remembered. They were cookies you could see light through, reminders that beauty can come from the simplest hands. Oatmeal lace cookies were elegance from the everyday, fleeting but unforgettable. Sugar cream pie was a dessert of quiet beauty, smooth and rich without needing decoration. Its filling, made from cream, sugar, and butter, was poured into a flaky crust and baked until just set, creamy but firm enough to slice. A sprinkle of cinnamon or nutmeg on top gave it warmth and color. This pie was a bridge between the Midwest and the South, shared at tables where comfort mattered more than appearance. It was sweet without excess, indulgent without pretense. Families made it when fruit was scarce, relying on what they had to bring joy. Served cool, each bite was velvety and mellow, like a whisper of kindness. It was the dessert of quiet Sundays and family reunions, always arriving last but never least. Sugar cream pie was made for the people who found joy in small things, the clink of forks, the laughter of children, the calm after a meal well shared. It was love written in simplicity, a dessert that didn't try to impress but always did. Chocolate mayonnaise cake was the secret marvel of post-war kitchens, shocking at first but beloved once tried. Using mayonnaise instead of butter, it baked into an impossibly moist, tender crumb that defied its ingredients. The cocoa gave it richness, the sugar balance, and the mayonnaise provided texture that stayed soft for days. It was the dessert of ingenuity, born when butter was scarce and creativity abundant. Frosted with chocolate or dusted with sugar, it turned skepticism into delight. The first bite was always followed by surprise, then a smile. Chocolate mayonnaise cake reminded families that innovation could taste as good as tradition. It was the sweet reward for daring to think differently. Each slice carried a story of resourcefulness, a memory of mothers who made magic out of shortage. The batter came together in moments, but its legacy lasted decades, a reminder that even the strangest ideas can become comfort with love and courage. Peanut butter candy balls were childhood wrapped in sweetness. Rolled from peanut butter, sugar, and butter, they were shaped by hand and chilled until firm. Sometimes they were dipped in melted chocolate, other times rolled in powdered sugar. They were the perfect no-bake treat, easy enough for kids to help make, yet delicious enough for everyone to love. Each bite combined creamy, salty, and sweet in perfect balance. These little candies often appeared at Christmas or school fairs, vanishing as fast as they were made. Peanut butter candy balls were proof that joy does not need an oven, just willing hands and a full heart. They sat proudly on holiday trays, nestled beside cookies and fudge, a reminder of togetherness and play. Making them was as fun as eating them, laughter echoing through the kitchen. They tasted like childhood, simple, sweet, and shared with love. Homemade jam cake was nostalgia baked deep into every crumb. The batter, dark and spiced, was blended with blackberry jam that kept it moist and flavorful. Cloves, cinnamon, and allspice gave it warmth, while a caramel or nut icing sealed its richness. It was a dessert of endurance and memory, baked for holidays or special gatherings. The sweetness of the jam mixed with the spice to create a depth that felt almost sacred. Served in thick slices, it tasted like time itself, patient, layered, full of heart. It was often baked days ahead so the flavors could settle, each one melting into the next. Families guarded their recipes like treasures, each version slightly different, but always made with devotion. The jam cake was celebration and remembrance, the kind of dessert that gathered everyone at the table even before the plates were set. Homemade jam cake was not just dessert. It was history you could taste, carried forward one forkful at a time. Cornbread dressing with gizzards was not a dish made by recipe. It was made by instinct, memory, and the rhythm of a cook's hand. The cornbread came first, baked golden and crumbled fine. The gizzards were boiled until tender, chopped small, and stirred in with onions, celery, broth, and sage. It was not delicate food. It was hearty, deeply seasoned, and made for feeding a crowd. Every aunt, mother, and grandmother had her own version, yet they all tasted like home. This was the soul of Thanksgiving in Black kitchens, where the dressing was often the main event, not the bird beside it. It was cooked in iron pans until the edges crisped and the center stayed moist. The aroma of sage and stock filled the house long before dinner was ready. Even today, when boxed mixes have replaced the slow labor of handmade dressing, memories of this dish linger. Because it was never just food, it was an act of care. Cornbread dressing with sage and gizzards was never written down. It was remembered. The smell alone could pull everyone into the kitchen before the pan even left the oven. The dressing was moist, peppery, and full of flavor that came from slow-simmered broth and scraps of meat that no one wasted. Every piece of gizzard, onion, and cornbread crumb had purpose. Women learned it by watching their mothers crumble bread by hand, stir broth until it felt right, and season not by measure but by memory. The sage gave it that unmistakable holiday taste, earthy and warm, tied to the idea of family coming home. This dish carried the spirit of resilience, using every bit of the bird and turning it into something worth celebrating. It stood proudly beside the turkey, sometimes outshining it. In church kitchens and home gatherings alike, pans of dressing were baked in iron skillets and passed down the table like heirlooms. The sound of the first spoon breaking through the crust was enough to hush a room. This was Christmas in its truest form, made from scratch, filled with care, and meant to feed both body and soul. Molasses pound cake was the kind of dessert that didn't just sweeten the table. It told a story of making do with what you had. In many African American homes, especially throughout the South, refined white sugar was a rare luxury, and molasses became the flavor of celebration. Its deep, dark sweetness came from patience and endurance, echoing the same values that carried families through hard times. The dense crumb and rich spice were familiar comforts that filled kitchens with warmth even when money was scarce. Grandmothers measured ingredients by feel, not by cups, and poured in a sense of pride that can't be replicated from a recipe card. A slice of this cake meant togetherness, a sweet that could make even a modest Christmas feel abundant. The aroma alone brought children running, waiting for the moment the first slice was cut and the first crumb hit their tongue. Molasses pound cake wasn't just dessert, it was heritage baked into sugar and spice, reminding every generation that sweetness doesn't have to come from plenty. It can come from perseverance, too. Homemade eggnog with nutmeg was Christmas comfort poured into glass cups. Families whisked eggs, milk, and sugar by hand until the mixture turned thick and creamy. Condensed milk gave it sweetness, a pinch of nutmeg gave it soul, and sometimes a secret splash of brandy gave it warmth. It chilled in the fridge overnight, waiting for laughter to fill the room. Elders sipped slowly while children begged for more foam. The first sip burned just slightly, smooth and rich, like velvet on the tongue. No carton could ever compare. It was the taste of patience and pride. The smell of nutmeg alone meant Christmas had arrived, wrapping the air in nostalgia. Every family guarded their version, written nowhere but remembered perfectly. Smothered turkey wings were the kind of meal that filled a house before you even sat down to eat. The slow-baked wings simmered in their own juices, bathed in a gravy so rich and brown it seemed to hold generations of flavor. In many African American Southern homes, this dish wasn't just food, it was a celebration of resourcefulness, a reminder that even the simplest cuts could taste like royalty. The wings were seasoned with onions, garlic, and a touch of pepper, then baked until the meat nearly fell from the bone. Once smothered in the thick pan gravy, they transformed into something divine, something that could silence an entire table mid-bite. On Christmas, when money might have been tight but spirits were high, this dish symbolized the best of soul food. Slow, loving, made to last. The gravy wasn't just poured, it was ladled like a blessing over rice, mashed potatoes, or soft cornbread. Every forkful carried comfort and patience, as if time itself had seasoned it. Smothered turkey wings were about stretching flavor, turning effort into abundance. The sound of bubbling broth, the smell of onions caramelizing, it was all part of the ritual. In every bite lived a legacy, and in every kitchen, the memory of someone who knew how to make a little go a long way. Molasses and cornmeal coffee substitute was a hot drink that filled cups when real coffee was too expensive or unavailable. Families stirred cornmeal into water, sometimes roasting it first, and sweetened the brew with molasses to mimic the richness of coffee. It was far from perfect, but it offered warmth and energy on cold mornings. Adults drank it before heading into fields or factories, needing the comfort of something hot to start the day. Children sometimes sipped it too, enjoying the sweetness even if they missed the taste of real coffee. Housewives valued it because both molasses and cornmeal were inexpensive staples that could stretch endlessly. This drink was not just about flavor, but about dignity, providing the illusion of luxury when actual coffee was out of reach. Though few remember it now, molasses and cornmeal coffee substitute once symbolized perseverance, showing that even in the absence of comforts, families found ways to hold on to ritual and routine. Fried corn with bacon drippings was one of those dishes that could make a kitchen smell like heaven itself. The corn was cut straight from the cob, each kernel scraped clean so none of the sweetness was lost. In a cast-iron skillet, bacon drippings sizzled, filling the air with a smoky perfume that could pull anyone toward the stove. The corn hit the pan and began to crackle, softening slowly as the fat coated each piece with flavor. A pinch of sugar, a touch of salt, maybe even a dash of black pepper. That was all it needed. The mixture thickened, becoming creamy without cream, a perfect blend of sweet and savory that belonged beside every roast or ham. For generations of Black families, this dish was a taste of summer brought into winter, a reminder that simple things, corn, fat, thyme, could become something extraordinary. The skillet was passed around the table until it was scraped clean, proof that love did not have to be fancy to be unforgettable. Mustard and turnip greens mixed together made a tangy, peppery side that brought life to every plate. They were picked fresh from gardens behind the house or given by neighbors who always grew too much. Cooking them was a slow, loving process, cleaning, chopping, and simmering until tender with a pinch of salt and something smoky for depth. The combination of mustard and turnip greens balanced sharpness with comfort. Their flavor was bold, almost defiant, like the people who cooked them. These greens told a story of survival through simplicity, a reminder that good taste does not need wealth. At Christmas, they cut through the heaviness of rich meats and gravies, refreshing the palate and grounding the meal. Each bite held the brightness of vinegar and the bite of pepper, something sharp to remind you of life's strength even in hard times. Every family had its own way to cook them, some with a bit of onion, some with fatback, and some just with faith. The pot of greens sat at the back of the stove, bubbling steady like time itself, carrying the scent of home and history. Raisin bread pudding with vanilla sauce was proof that nothing in the kitchen went to waste. Stale bread became a canvas for transformation, soaked in milk, sweetened, and brought to life again. Raisins added richness, plumping up in the heat until they burst with syrupy sweetness. The pudding baked slowly, filling the air with the smell of nutmeg and brown sugar. And then came the best part. The vanilla sauce, smooth and glossy, poured over the warm pudding like kindness itself. This dish carried the rhythm of old kitchens, where creativity was the difference between scarcity and abundance. At Christmas, it was often served as the grand finale, simple yet deeply satisfying. Every spoonful was soft, comforting, and impossibly nostalgic. It was more than a way to stretch ingredients. It was a way to stretch joy. Afro tree toppers stood as proud symbols of beauty, faith, and identity. Mothers molded angels with brown faces, coiled hair, and wings made from lace or fabric scraps. They painted each one by hand, giving them radiant smiles and halos cut from golden ribbon. Placed high atop trees, these angels shone under colored lights like guardians of joy. In a time when stores sold only pale-faced cherubs, these creations were quiet acts of love and defiance. Children looked up and saw themselves reflected in every feature, their pride glowing brighter than the lights below. Each year, the angel returned, sometimes patched, sometimes faded, but always cherished. It wasn't just decoration, it was representation made sacred. Neighbors admired them, guests asked where to buy one, but the answer was always the same: we made her. That truth gave the season its power. Those handmade angels transformed ordinary living rooms into spaces of dignity and belonging. Sweet potato biscuits brought sunshine to winter mornings. Their orange glow peeked from the oven, warm and soft with a buttery crust that crumbled at the touch. They were made from mashed sweet potatoes, one of the most treasured ingredients in African American kitchens, valued for their sweetness, their earthiness, and their ability to stretch a meal. On Christmas mornings, these biscuits were stacked high beside grits, eggs, or fried apples, brushed with melted butter or drizzled with honey. They smelled like the start of a good day. In times when sugar was scarce, the natural sweetness of the potato did all the work. Kneaded by hand and baked in cast-iron skillets, they carried the weight of care in every fold. Grandmothers taught children how to press the dough without overworking it, whispering small lessons about patience, family, and food as love. These biscuits weren't fancy, but they made every breakfast feel special. They were proof that beauty didn't need perfection, just heart, warmth, and a little time. Every batch was a promise that something good always waited at the table. Sweet potato biscuits didn't just feed families, they connected them. If these desserts stirred a sweet memory, tell us your favorite in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe to keep the taste of tradition alive.